Your best recruiter has to be your CEO, and it has to be the number one thing on their mind that keeps them up at night. Building a culture in which everyone participates and everyone plays a critical role, that's the magic that I think companies need to really imbibe into their cultures to make sure that they can yield the most valuable hires they can. So hiring managers, I think, should push themselves to say, how can I aim higher and find the unfindable? It's easy to say, software engineers are hard to find or product managers are hard to find. I think it's hard to find great HR people personally.
We are here with Robert Lopez, Vice President of Global Recruitment at Thumbtack. Thumbtack is a home service website that allows users to hire local service providers and make caring for their home easier. Robert has been on all ends of the people sphere over the last 10 years with extensive experiences and leadership in talent acquisition, HR, and recruitment. So I'm looking forward to having his perspective on today. Robert, thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lisa.
To start by telling us more about Thumbtack, your role, and some of the previous experiences that led you to the role.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll start at the beginning and work my way to now. I've always been a builder and had a builder's mindset. And when I was a kid, my favorite toy was Tinker Toy. So if you remember that, it was one of those toys where you could just kind of put the pegs together and make something really interesting and unique. And that's followed me all the way through my career in many ways. I've always been and had a desire to see things from different perspectives and to make something interesting come to life. And so way back when I started in my career, I began on the agency side in roles where I was building, in a sense, my own business, my own book of business, and then eventually moved over into the in-house side and was part of fast-growing companies, at-scale companies like Vistaprint, Wayfair, and then after 5 years at Chewy, where there was a ton of growth and a ton of really cool experiences, Thumbtack opportunity came about, and I dove in headfirst. Today, I lead the global talent acquisition team, and we are looking to build the company into a household brand. But again, it all comes back to being a builder and looking for different opportunities to get in and roll up my sleeves and make a significant impact in the growth of a company.
Now, Robert, you've worked on developing talent teams, as you mentioned, for companies like Chewy and Wayfair. And there's a lot of companies right now just trying to figure out how to justify and build out their TA function successfully. So can you share with us some of the golden rules you go by for building and scaling TA teams from the ground up?
Yeah, just to demystify it, I think a little bit, there's no playbook on how to do recruiting. I think a lot of people look to hire somebody who can come in and really kind of just implement what they've done somewhere else. But every organization has a different operational style. They have different cultural values, different degrees of importance relative to finding and hiring talent. And of course, every company has a different bar for what talent they need. So no two TA organizations are built identically. And I think that's the first golden rule of building and scaling a TA team from the ground up, is that the leader has to clearly identify the business goals, the tie into talent, and then customize a strategy to deliver and earn trust throughout their time there. So that would be one. I'd say the second golden rule really is about the people. You have to be equally invested in developing the talent you have and constantly looking for opportunities to add new capabilities to that talent, especially when you're in these hyper growth environments where the business changes every 6 to 12 months. From a talent perspective, you can't really accomplish anything without a high performing team. So you've got to be constantly thinking about how to push folks to achieve their potential and then augment their potential with what you feel like you need to be prepared for the future. And then third, it starts at the top. If you aspire to build a recruiting organization that adds significant value to the business and is a catalyst for how the company grows, your best recruiter has to be your CEO. And it has to be the number one thing on their mind that keeps them up at night. With a heavily invested CEO as your leading evangelist, you'll be able to build and grow and accomplish a ton. But without one, you'll constantly be swimming against the stream. So I'd say that those three golden rules are: there's no one playbook, there's no one right way to do it. But it is all about the people, and you've got to constantly raise the capability of your team while ensuring that the most senior leader in your organization is an advocate and an evangelist for recruiting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you have worked with rates of filling over 1,200 annual hires across the globe. Talk to us about what programs and initiatives have you found to be to yield the most valuable hires?
Yeah, I might answer this a little differently than you're asking, if that's okay. But the best cultural norm that has to be established in order to make high quality hires and ultimately those that create the most value is that recruiting is everyone's challenge to solve, and we all play a critical role. I think the companies that don't do well at hiring talent at scale is because they rely on the recruiting organization as the only lever in hiring. But the reality is we all play key and critical positions. So for example, the hiring manager, yeah, they hire, right? They make the hiring decisions, but they also recruit, right? They also reach out to passive talent. They also send through referrals from their prior experience. They think creatively about where to find the purple squirrel that they're looking for. And they don't just sit back waiting for the recruiter to do everything. They are the recruiter. So building a culture in which everyone participates and everyone plays a critical role, that's the magic that I think companies need to really imbibe into their cultures to make sure that they can yield the most valuable hires they can get.
Now, you've obviously been through hiring in a lot of different labor markets. So, share with us some of the struggles that recruitment teams are facing today and how they can really overcome in 2023.
Yeah, there's always something to overcome with candidates, right? In hot markets and ones where the candidates are getting multiple offers without even really having to formally interview, you hear from them, I'm only going to leave for a 50% raise and a promo and, corner office or whatever the request might be. And on certain markets like we're entering into or in right now, where you're seeing layoffs on a daily basis, the biggest challenge can actually be a little bit different than that, right? It can be how do you evangelize yourself in a way that proves to the candidate that you're stable enough to take the risk in leaving their job for yours. So I believe the solution to both are really the same. It's about evangelizing your employer value proposition in such a way that candidates who are reasonably concerned about stability now are willing to take the leap and take the risk to leave their current role where they may be very comfortable and come to an organization where it's obvious what the value of doing it is to them in the end. And I think that's the same, whether the candidates are in candidate-driven markets or whether candidates are in more cautious markets like we are now.
And I guess to come off that previous question as well, what are some of the most difficult roles you have found to fill and why?
Yeah, there's a vast array at Thumbtack, and there have been at Chewy and Wayfair and Vistaprint and other places along the way. I think every role should be difficult to fill. Every role should be one in which we are pushing ourselves to find more qualified, highly qualified, diverse, unique, fresh perspectives that are additive and constructive to our culture. So if the role is easy to fill, meaning maybe there's a ton of candidates in the market or the selection process is relatively easy to go through, then I don't think you're trying hard enough to build an organization into a talent magnet. So hiring managers, I think, should push themselves to say, how can I aim higher and find the unfindable? It's easy to say, software engineers are hard to find or product managers are hard to find. I think it's hard to find great HR people personally. But I think at the end of the day, if every role feels difficult to fill, and then I think your organization's probably very successful at going and getting great talent.
Now, I've chatted with a lot of different people in the past few months about what type of hiring model they think is most effective for companies to hold. So, from your seat, I'd love to hear from your perspective. What do you think is the most valuable hiring model a company can hold?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the comment I made earlier about there's no playbook. There's no right answer to this because every company is so different, right? The best answer, I think, for a given company starts with building a team structure to support the business and its structure and goals. For us at Thumbtack, that's a centralized model. At Chewy, it was somewhat decentralized. And at Wayfair, it changed from both over time. Sometimes it really needs to evolve and evolve as the business is. But some companies as an example, may have one applicant tracking system, and some others may have two. There's no. I think that the leaders who confine themselves to one model don't evolve as the business does, and ultimately the teams don't achieve the success. I will say though, in my experience, I've seen a tremendous amount of value in a model that enables familiarity between the business and the recruiters that support that business, so that those recruiters get to know their internal partners incredibly well. They get to know the business super well. They feel invested in the success of the hire and the team. And the partners can influence the process because they get very familiar with their recruiting leads. So that is something that I think is intrinsic and needed in every team. But beyond that, there's no one size fits all.
Last question for you, Robert. At Solvable, we're all about what drives purpose and meaning for people at work. So I'd love to know what drives purpose and meaning for you at Thumbtack.
Yeah, it always comes back to the same two things for me when I get that question. I love the question. I'm a builder and I want to add immense value. And you're never done either as a leader or as an individual doing both, right? You can make a massive impact and you can lead others through the work that you do. So every day for me centers around them and my team and how we collectively can add immense value and grow the business. So helping develop and grow my amazingly talented team and trusted team by removing obstacles for them proving sort of paving a trust-based path for them to make their own impact. For me, everything comes back to the people I work with and work with, for, and besides every day. And so that's my purpose every day.
Robert, thank you so much for being on with us today. And thank you all for listening to Architects of Contemporary Hiring.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.